Foundations of Speed Development, otherwise known as speed literacy. Ajmu Alanian, doctoral student, Concordia University, Chicago. This presentation was inspired by numerous conversations that I have had with coaches as well as athletes and their families based on misbeliefs and misconceptions about speed development. Sprint training and development is not based or guided largely by sports science. There's a lack of evidence-based research which identifies best practices for speed development, especially for high school athletes. There's a huge gap between the scientific knowledge of speed development and the experience of coaching. So, in other words, the science of and the biomechanics of sprint development is not aligned with the experience of many coaches. Hence, many coaches don't coach speed correctly. They don't value speed correctly. In the case of a lot of distance coaches, so the speed literacy presentation is to clarify what science says about speed development. Speed reserve is an athlete's efficiency while they're sprinting. So it's similar to an athlete being able to lift 500 pounds. If their max is 500 pounds for the squat or bench, and you ask them to lift 300 pounds, the difference between their maximum um, capacity and the demand in that moment is large enough where they can very efficiently and effectively accomplish that goal. So being able to run fast allows you to run more efficiently and effectively multiple times. Speed basics. Although there are many different aspects and dimensions to speed development, this presentation is restricted to 10 key concepts, and each one will be broken down in detail. Sprinting, the primary elements are acceleration, maximum velocity, and deceleration. The second concept, maximum velocity exists in a 10-meter window. Sprinting, in regards specific to maximum velocity, takes place between 30 to 60 meters. Number 4, a 10-meter fly with a 30-meter fly start is an efficient means of measuring maximum velocity. Number 5, if it's not greater than or equal to 95%, it is not sprinting. Number 6, electronic timing is accurate and precise. Number 7, apples to apples, meters to meters. Number 8, sprinting equals the vertical application of maximal force in a downward direction. Number 9, low intensity training 48 hours before and after sprint efforts. And number 10, arms aren't as important as you think. Number 1, sprinting equals the acceleration phase, the maximum velocity phase, and then deceleration. If you look at the slide, the orange rectangle identifies the acceleration phase, which is from 0 to 10, depending on which article you read. A point could be made that the acceleration phase goes from 0 meters to 30 meters. However, research has made it emphatically clear that maximum velocity takes place starting at 30 meters and ending around 60 meters. Elite sprinters hit maximum velocity later, and emerging and developmental sprinters hit max velo sooner. The deceleration phase takes place depending on the experience and capabilities of the sprinter at different points within the sprint effort, but it is normally after they hit maximum velocity. Number two, maximum velocity exists in a 10-meter window. So in the slide, there are 10-meter splits of the 100-meter dash for Usain Bolt. As you can see, at the 60 to 70-meter window is when he achieves maximum velocity. There was a study that found that the finish place was established at 40 meters, and this was in an elite race. So again, no athlete can sustain maximum velocity longer than 10 meters. So that has implications that I will discuss later on. Number three, sprinting, as far as maximum velocity is concerned, takes place between 30 to 60 meters. So the fastest time took place on the back end of the window. If you actually look at the slide, you can see that speed maintenance, which is a totally different dimension of sprinting, also takes place past that 30 to 60 meter window where Usain Bolt, so his best sprint effort for 10 meters was 0.81. But if you notice, even after he hits that, he maintains a very high level of speed with 0.82, 0.83, and 0.83. So that's speed maintenance. That's something that we're not really focusing on here. The main point is that it's in that window where a lot of coaches, they either train past 60 meters or they train before 60 meters. So a lot of coaches are working from 0 to 10 meters, and that's not speed training, that's acceleration training. If you're in that zone, that's totally different. Number four, a 10-meter fly with a 30-meter fly start is an efficient means of measuring maximum velocity. So there's many different ways where you can quantify an athlete's maximum velocity or speed. However, for developmental athletes, the easiest means of measuring an athlete's maximum velocity is to capture 10-meter sprint effort and give them a 30-meter fly start. So that's standing, you're not doing a 3-point start. It's a standing start. They're sprinting and you're only capturing the last 10 meters. And that has been substantiated in multiple studies. Number five, if an athlete is not sprinting at greater than or equal to 95% of their maximum velocity, it's not sprinting. So, many times coaches will tell athletes, you need to run 70% of your max. And these coaches are hand timing using a stopwatch, or worse yet, there's no stopwatch. So how is an athlete supposed to know how fast 70% of their maximum is? No self-respecting strength and conditioning coach would ever send an athlete into the weight room and say, hey, lift 70% of your max without knowing their max. However, when it comes to speed, that's often what happens. Number six, electronic timing is accurate and precise. Hand timing has an efficiency of 0.2 seconds error. So when you have electronic timing, you're giving athletes and the coach, any stakeholders, precise and accurate information, which will guide training and performance. Number seven, apples to apples, meters to meters. The kinematic equation for speed is distance over time, and it's measured in meters per second. So unfortunately, there are coaches who are doing speed development, and I understand if they're they're focused on football and they look at yards, or they use yards as their standard unit. However, if you're gonna compare speed, it should really be meters and meters. If you want to convert it to yards, in my opinion, we should be keeping everything consistent and using meters as the standard unit. Number 8, sprinting from a biomechanical standpoint is essentially the horizontal application of maximum force. So there's research that has identified the braking and propulsion dynamic, which is key to sprinting, particularly the braking, which is the absorption of ground reaction forces. So the more force you can put into the ground, the greater rate of force production, which means that the faster the athlete will move. And so it's not just vertical application, it's more so horizontal application of maximal force. Number 9, for best results, low intensity training should take place 48 hours before and after sprint efforts. One study showed that repeated sprint running reduced the ability of the lower body musculature to generate power and impaired very short term, about 2 seconds intermittent sprint running performance for at least 3 days. So there are coaches out there who are doing high intensity sprint workouts on back-to-back days. This is suboptimal and inefficient. Another study showed that there is an immediate and long-lasting reduction in muscle strength and power that could last, again, 72 hours. So their athletes and the central nervous system need time to recover. So 48 hours before and after training. Number 10, arms aren't as important as you think. Dr. Peter Weyand said that while arm movements are coordinated with torso and leg movements to achieve the energy transfers that minimize center of mass energy losses, they certainly do not control leg movements and have very little effect on the all-important ground reaction forces. So, our arms, do they have an effect on running? Yes. Are they as important as many coaches make them out to be from a biomechanical standpoint? No. So, in summary, there's some key points that I hope that everyone will take away from this presentation. Number 1, that maximum velocity takes place between 30 to 60 meters. So if you actually are going to train and develop speed, you need to work in that zone. If you are training from 0 to 10, even 0 to 30, you're not training maximum velocity, you're training acceleration. Training at 95% of maximum velocity is the only way to develop top end speed. I'm not going to get into rate of coding. That's a neuromuscular response to sprinting. However, to perform fast, you have to train fast. If you're not training fast, then the body is not recruiting the fast twitch fibers that are essential to becoming faster. So that means that if you're running slow for 40 or for 400 meters or 200 meters, then you're not sprinting. Next key point, maximum velocity exists for only 10 meters. So again, if you're not hitting max velocity because you're not sprinting at greater than or equal to 95% of an athlete's top end speed, If you are going outside of the maximum velocity zone, then you're doing something different than training speed. Lastly, again, there's many different ways of capturing speed. However, I would submit that the most efficient and effective means of doing so is a 10-meter fly with a 30-meter fly start using electronic timing. I appreciate your time and interest, and hopefully the presentation has been beneficial for you. The research that is used to pull together this presentation follows this. Thanks again.